Yes.
25 years ago, you were looking for a job just out of the Air Force.
I was, and you know what? I have to say, you have not aged one single day.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You're still the same lovely lady that I met
Oh.
25 years ago.
Listen to you. Isn't that why I hired you? Must have been. For the, you were just full of flattery at that
All
time.
the sweet talking.
But you know what is so funny is that just the other day I had this collection of pictures and stuff from the TV station long ago.
Yeah.
And there was a picture of you and me and one other person. And yeah, I don't even know if you remember him. Gray, I think his last name was in sports. What was his name?
Oh,
anyway.
Right.
And I was going to bring it and I completely forgot. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to post it on Facebook.
Really?
It's
Oh, that's nice of you.
hilarious.
That is nice of you.
So it goes back a long, long way. But so you were in the Air Force.
Right.
How did you decide, I want to do TV? What's that all about?
All right. Well, it was back in the late 80s, and I had blown out my knee back in 1987, training for Special Forces, believe it or not.
Whoa.
There were about 200, at the time, 200 Air Force meteorologists that support Special Forces, and I wish I could say I did it doing something really amazing, like I was rappelling out of a helicopter, the rope broke, my chute didn't open, but no, I don't have a good story like that. Now I was playing frisbee football, jumped up in the air, came down, and my right knee literally just exploded.
Oh.
Had about 5 knee surgeries, spent 2.5 additional years in the Air Force, and the Air Force finally medically retired me because they said my knee was unfit for military service.
Oh,
So I was it was like my last year of active duty, stationed in Oklahoma City, Tornado Alley. And one afternoon I was watching the local evening newscasts and watching this guy do weather, and we had some friends over, and I said, man, I could do what that Yahoo is doing. How difficult could that be?
Yeah.
And so we laughed about it, and then a couple of days later they were back over, and he said, hey, Monty, did you ever call that TV station to find out how you could be a TV weatherman? I'm like, nah, I didn't. And he picked up the phone, dials this station, and we get to the weather department. I talked to this guy, and he said, yeah, why don't you come on in here one of your days off? So I go in, meet the guy, really great guy, a guy by the name of Alan Mitchell, who's still doing TV weather. Spent all day in there with him, and then I said, hey, how do I get into doing TV weather? And he was like, well, you got to put together a resume tape and all of this. And he said, you know what, why don't you come back? I'll get you an internship here at the TV station. Turns out he was an ex-Air Force meteorologist like myself.
Oh.
Took me under his wing. We put together these tapes, one of which I'm sure you saw, and looking back on it, oh man, how embarrassed I am that I actually sent that to anyone. But I got a job, got out of the Air Force, moved back to the Pacific Northwest, and started trying to get a job, and then you hired me. So if I haven't said so, thank you, Christine.
Oh, Monty, that's great. I'm going to give our phone number. It is 509-547-8726. If you have got a question or a comment for Monty, don't hesitate to join our conversation. So, So we were the first TV area that
Right.
you started to forecast for. And what is it about this region that makes it hard or easy to forecast?
Well, it's a little bit of both. Normally, when I'm looking at stuff, I'm looking at all my model data, putting together my forecast. In other places, when you get a disturbance that will move through, you can normally squeeze out rain. Around here, I tell you, squeezing out rain is difficult to do, except last week when we got
Yes.
more than an inch in a 24-hour period, which, by the way, was a record amount. It's difficult to get all the ingredients that come together for us to get the rain around here. That's why we live in the desert.
Yeah.
You've got the Cascades that hold everything up, and then a lot of times we'll get our showers and thunderstorms that'll drop off of the blues. You get a southerly flow, you get those storms popping up in the blues, and then they'll drift into the mid-Columbia and the Columbia Basin. We had some sprinkles early this morning. Those were what was left of thunderstorms that were over the blues yesterday evening. They were decaying, drifting down, and eventually moved over top of us. So if you were up early enough, and Christine, I'm not sure if you were up early enough, we had some sprinkles around early this morning.
I'm not
And-
going to say.
Yeah, you were getting your beauty sleep. The other thing that's kind of difficult, is forecasting the winds, because it's always windy around here, or that's what people think. But forecasting the wind speeds, what type of winds we need to get some dust blowing, the type of the year, what's happening out in the in the agricultural lands. You know, do we have crops in the fields? All of that stuff comes together to give me as a meteorologist new challenges. I'm not forecasting severe weather anymore. I'm not forecasting tornadoes or anything like that, but there's new challenges, and that's what I like about my job. Every day, even when we are in the middle of summer around here and it's sunny and 92 in the, for daytime highs, overnight lows in the 60s, there's always a challenge. You just have to look for it.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, what is our forecast for tonight, tomorrow, and the weekend?
All right, for the rest of today,
Okay.
Partly sunny, afternoon highs in the low to the mid 80s. Wind's not a problem here today. Some showers and thunderstorms developing once we get into the afternoon with the heat of the day over the blues. There's an outside possibility of what I like to call a renegade shower moving through the basin. Basically, you'd have to look really hard to find one of those. Same thing for tomorrow with highs in the low to the mid 80s. And then moving into Thursday, partly sunny, probably mid 80s. And then Thursday night into Friday, we'll have an area of low pressure drop down out of the Gulf of Alaska. We've been stuck in this long wave trough over the west coast. And we'll get one of those moving through northern California into Nevada. It'll give us some wraparound moisture. So Friday, a good chance of showers, probably at 30 or 40%. We'll do that again on Saturday. Then another system moves through Saturday afternoon with more scattered showers, and then maybe a leftover raindrop early Sunday morning. And then moving into Memorial Day, right now I have it partly sunny and a high of 80. Weekend temperatures, mid-70s.
You should have seen that on the green screen. It was incredible.
Yeah. you know, if you notice, people at home obviously listening can't see what I'm doing, but I can't talk about weather without moving my hands and pointing at something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Monty, that's fun. I'll tell you what, why don't we take a break here, Monty, because we want to come back. I want to talk about your career. You've been all over the United States. You've certainly seen a lot. You've been to some really big cities, and now you're back here with us.
I know.
How did that happen?
It's a homecoming.
We'll be back in a moment. Oh, we're in studio today enjoying the company of Monty Webb, a meteorologist at KNDU. Monty, one of the questions that John brought up a little earlier, which I thought was just hilarious, is, you know, what do people say to you? I mean, I suppose they really dog you when you get the forecast wrong or whatever?
Well, you know, my way of dealing with that is I just never get the forecast wrong.
Really?
No.
Oh, Monty, come on. It can't always be right.
No, yeah, it's not. It's a very imperfect science.
Yes, it is.
And, you know, people always remember when it rained on their picnic and you said it was going to be sunny. They never remember when you're right.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, you know, people, here's how I deal with this. People always expect the weather guy to be wrong, but when you're right, they think you're a weather god. So if you just keep that in your mind, you're fine.
Oh, that's good. All right, so when you left the Tri-Cities here, I believe you went to Spokane?
I did,
Yeah.
to our sister station, KHQ. We were there for 2.5 years. My middle son was born, or my only son, was born in Spokane. And then from there, we went to Boise. I was doing weekends in Spokane. I went to Boise to be their chief meteorologist, and we were there for about a year. And when I got the call from Seattle, and went to work at the Cairo TV back home. I'm from the Pacific Northwest, grew up in the Seattle area. And we were there, never in our wildest dreams did we think we would ever leave Seattle. But I got a call from Chicago to go work in the big city. I mean, the big city.
That's big.
It is.
Yeah.
I went to Chicago, absolutely loved the Chicago area. Was there for 3 months and had the third worst snowstorm in the history of Chicago.
Oof.
We had 30 inches of snow in about a 24-hour period.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was a bunch of snow. And that year, it just snowed and snowed and snowed, and it never went away. And then we moved back home. We got the call to come back to the Seattle area. You know, it's you can take a Northwest boy out of the Northwest, but you can't take that Northwest out of you know, the boy. And we just always had this draw to move back home. Was back at Cairo again doing weekends for them, and then had the opportunity to be chief meteorologist in Louisville, Kentucky, also a pretty good sized city, and really felt like I needed to be a chief meteorologist in a really weather intense market. and loved it. I mean, I saw everything from ice storms to one of the worst tornado outbreaks that they've had in that area. And then every summer, my wife's vacation became a little bit longer and a little bit longer. Her 2 weeks vacation out here turned into 3 weeks to a month to 2 months until last year. She was like, you know, Monty, we really need to move back home. Either that or else I was going to have to get another a house out here.
Yeah, it's all about Kim, isn't it?
It is all about Kim, and you know what?
That's a subtle hint.
No, she has put up with so much from me
Yeah.
over the years. It was her turn. My oldest daughter lives in Kennewick. She's a school teacher in the Kennewick School District. And so we thought, let's just move back home. And the opportunity came to go back to work at KNDU, anchoring and doing the morning weather for them. And so we jumped on the opportunity. And as a matter of fact, you know, we just bought a house. Bought the house.
Good for you.
Yeah, just bought the house next door to my daughter and her kids. So every morning now, as the kids are walking to school, because we're walking distance to the school, we get a knock on the door. It's the grandkids, Nana, Papa, every afternoon coming by. Hey, Papa, what do you got for a snack? So I open it in. That's why we moved back home.
Oh, that is so sweet. That's good to know. Hey, so from all those years, of course, you were coming back all the time, but what is different about the Tri-Cities, do you think?
Wow, just the growth in the Tri-Cities. I mean, I was here, boy, 1990 to 1992, and the growth is amazing. You know, over behind the mall off of Gage Avenue, you know, all of those new businesses, the homes. I mean, that was just all open fields and a lot of tumbleweeds. You know, back then.
Yeah.
Just the growth is what really strikes me. It's, you know, the Tri-Cities is just a wonderful community. It's a great community to raise a family in. It's a great community to come back and enjoy your kids' family in. So it's just a wonderful place. In Eastern Washington, I have people say, hey, what's your favorite side of the state? Western Washington or Eastern Washington? And my reply is always, I love them both the same, because both sides of the state have their own uniqueness about them, their own beauty. A place I had never gone to until just recently was Palouse Falls. Went to Palouse Falls about a month ago, and just the beauty when you walk in, everything was starting to turn green, and you're out in the middle of a desert, and all of a sudden you have this beautiful waterfall that appears out of nowhere.
Oh, that's great. So you probably wanted to learn all about the Missoula floods then from there. Because it just ties right in. It's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about really severe weather forecasting, because we're not accustomed to that here. Occasionally we're going to get some things like maybe a severe windstorm, and people are going to turn to TV for it and all. But in other parts of the country, I mean, you are so important in that role.
Yeah, you know, around here, we'll get a couple of thunderstorms a year. Maybe once every other year, we'll get a severe thunderstorm warning for, you know, the Columbia Basin into the foothills of the Blues. And that's generally for maybe damaging winds of 55 miles an hour or 1-inch size hail. For us in the back east, and, you know, in particular the Louisville area, that's just like a normal severe thunderstorm warning. We don't even break in for things like that.
Right.
We just run a crawl. Probably one of the worst tornado outbreaks that part of the country had seen was back in March 2nd of 2012. We had been warning people for several days in advance. All the weather models were indicating that the ingredients were going to be coming together for just a very, very bad severe weather outbreak. And so we had been letting people know, you know, going over safety plans, what you need to have in your storm shelter, what you need to be prepared for. Well, March 2nd, I had our storm chasers out, we had our entire weather staff in, had reporters around, and we see these individual thunderstorm cells developing out ahead of the front. And they started taking on these characteristics of something we call a supercell thunderstorm. These giant thunderstorms that live on their own. And we had this one massive one that just started rotating. We could see the rotation in the storm, and it ended up producing an EF4 tornado that was on the ground for 59 minutes, traveled 59 miles, and was anywhere from a quarter of a mile to a half mile wide. And it tracked just north of the Ohio River, about 18 miles north of Louisville, went through all of these little Indiana towns, totally destroying them as it crossed over. And this one town in particular, this little town of Henryville, Indiana, 5 people lost their lives in that little town. That one tornado ended up killing 13 people that day. And while we were tracking it, I remember looking at the radar, telling people that they needed to get to the storm shelter, not walk, they needed to run, grab their kids, get down and get underground. And if people don't have a basement in that part of the country, you tell them to get to that interior room, like a bathroom or a closet without any windows. Put as many walls between you and the outside, and grab some blankets, cover up your head. And while I'm telling people this, I'm thinking to myself, if you're not going underground, there's a high likelihood that you may not survive if this tornado hits your home. And we were on the air for over 5 hours that day. We had our storm chasers on the tornado. We had live video coming in. We had pictures of softball size hail and larger live on the air, just punching holes through the sides of homes and everything like that.
Wow.
It was just, it was an amazing day in the fact of to seeing, nature's fury, but also just a mentally exhausting day as well. To this day, I always tell people when they ask me about that, I tell them I never want to see another day like that again.
That's a lot of pressure for you, I would imagine. We joke about whether or not TV meteorologists are right or whether forecasters are correct, but boy, this is life and death.
It really is, and you're tracking these storms live, so I'm interpreting the radar data. We look at something around here, the likelihood of me ever showing a velocity radar, very slim. But in that part of the country, the viewers are educated on that because looking inside of the storm, the velocity, you see the individual movements of the rain particles, the raindrops, so I can see if that storm is rotating, how big of a rotation, how strong it is. And then something else that we saw on that day, something called a debris ball on the reflectivity return, that we showed the radar. I showed it this morning. You see the green and the yellow blobs and everything. Well, with a debris ball, you get this very classic hook echo, and then imagine something the size of your fist at the end of that hook that's all bright red and purples. What that is the actual debris being lifted aloft by that tornado that the radar is picking up. And so we saw this debris ball travel a good 30 miles, and it was huge.
Wow.
Pretty scary stuff.
Yes, very scary stuff.
Wow.
So I'm going to give our phone number again. It's 509-547-8726. You've got a question for Monty, you may want to make a comment, go ahead and give us a call. We'll put you on the air. But now what you're saying, Monty, is, hey, I'm done with that.
I am done.
Yeah.
Yep. Sunshine and 90s. That's what I'm into now. Yep.
So you go quite a bit between both sides of the Cascades here. You have family on the other side.
I have my other daughter, my middle daughter, lives over in the Maple Valley area. She has 2 kids. Another one on the way, and we just found out yesterday that Lindsay is expecting her first girl. So congratulations, Lindsay. We're so excited for her and Jerry. That's my son-in-law. So that will bring the total up to 7 grandkids.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Those kids of mine have been busy, haven't they?
They really have. So, Monty, if you hadn't gone into television meteorology, is there something else that may have caught your eye? Do you ever think back about that?
Well, if I hadn't, I've been doing weather for so long, prior to TV in the Air Force. Had I not blown out my knee, I probably would have retired from the Air Force and then, maybe gone to work for National Weather Service or working for DOD because I do love weather. What's great about my job is every day I go into work, my desk is clean. I don't have paperwork, piling up for me to get to later. Because in our business, we have finite deadlines. Our show starts at 4:30 in the morning. I can't say, hey, I'll get to that later. No, I've got to be ready at 4:30 in the morning. And when it's done at 7 o'clock in the morning, well, my slate is clean and I get to start all over again. So I kind of love that deadline, the pressure, and everything from this business.
All right. Monty, we've so enjoyed having you here today. I can tell that you love your work. I mean, it's
do.
so
Are
obvious.
we done already? I have so much more to say.
No, you're done, Monty, you're done.
Wait a minute, wait, one more.
We are back in a moment. We'll wrap up today's program.
Can
Thanks,
I keep
Monty.
talking?
Go
Thanks,
ahead.
Christine.